Hello everyone, and thank you for excuse me, joining us today for a webinar called The Next Best Hotel Tech, which has been kindly sponsored by Bizzon and Eleanor, and you are gonna find out more about these two companies a bit later on. So to briefly introduce myself for those that don't know me already, I'm Eloise Hanson. I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News. We are an online multimedia B2B platform for boutique, lifestyle and luxury hotels. Now, this webinar is following a slightly different format from what we have hosted before. I've used the term Dragon's Den style to really try and point to you guys what to expect, the flavor of what we're going to be talking about today. So to highlight how this webinar is going to run, we're going to spend 15 minutes chatting with our judges about tech developments and innovations within their respective sectors. And then I am going to invite our three tech providers to effectively pitch their product and tell us why their platform is the next best hotel tech. And we'll be holding a poll right at the end to hear your thoughts on this. If you have any questions for any of our speakers today, be it our judges or our technology providers, please submit these using the Q&A function. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to every registrant at the end. So to briefly introduce our pitchers before we get started, I'm going to hand over to each, which means that Dom, I'm going to be kick-starting with yourself.
Hi everyone, so my name is Dominic Child. I'm the VP of Sales at Bizzon and also now the Sales Director for Point of Sale for Muse following our acquisition. I've been in hospitality technology for about 22 years now through businesses like Sky and Fourth Hospitality and spent the last 2 years with Bizzon and like I said, recently acquired by Muse in March this year.
Thank you, Dom. And I'm coming to Duncan next, please. Duncan, you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah, hi, my name's Duncan Chappell. I'm the Commercial Director of Eleanor. I have been to over 60 countries and I've lived in 5 and I've stayed in well over 1,000 different type of accommodation providers. So I'm quite passionate about the industry. Eleanor itself, as you'll hear later, is a tech provider based in London, predominantly offering a PMS, booking engine, guest services, technology.
Fantastic. Thank you, Duncan. And last but not least, Shaun, over to you, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shaun, country lead for the UK and Ireland at HiJiffy. HiJiffy's goal is an all-in-one communication platform for hotels to really connect travelers with the hospitality industry. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon and explain to you more about HiJiffy's journey.
Thank you, Shaun. And we've popped all the LinkedIn profiles of our pitchers today in the chat if you would like to hear more. Moving on to our judges, I'm going to hand over to Graham first, if you'd like to take it away.
Indeed. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Graham Pope. I'm the Vice President of Sales for International at Cvent. On the hospitality cloud side of our business, many of you may know Cvent, but our business is split into 2 core sectors. The largest part is the part that deals with the event planner. I'm working on the hospitality side where we deal with hotels and events venues. And of course, we bring these 2 ecosystems together to drive business and operational efficiency through software. I've spent the past 16 years in the event sector, dealing very much on the planning side of the industry, and I've been with Cvent leading the international regions for the past 3 years.
Brilliant. Thank you, Graham. And Valentina, over to you, please.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Valentina Shegoyan. I'm heading up Reach UK, part of Second Century Ventures. We are a venture fund and an accelerator program for real estate tech startups launching into real estate. And I'm personally in real estate for nearly 20 years and in technology and venture investments for about 4 years.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And once again, the LinkedIn profiles of our judges have been popped into the chat if you would like to connect and carry on the conversation. So as I highlighted at the beginning, we're just going to spend some time speaking with our judges today to talk about what they're seeing and what are the trends and what are the innovations around tech. So Valentina, I would like to kick off with yourself, please. And again, sort of top line question here, what are the challenges that owners and operators are facing at the moment?
Thanks, Elisa. Yes, sure. So we work with real estate industry as a whole, so not only hospitality, across segments. And I would say that every single segment is currently challenged on two key dimensions. So first, I would say that the customer profile is changing. And when it comes to hospitality industry, we are talking about hotels, short-term stays, vacational rentals, service departments. And I would say that customer profile is no longer that distinct. And real estate owners and operators, they all are in a serious need for data and engagement with new customers to understand the profile that is changing and to understand how to cater to those segments best. And that's where I believe technology can help. And the second big trend is the general digitalization of the world. So we can see that customers, they get used to certain digital services and the way of being served, and that is very, it's becoming more and more clear in industries like, well, when we're ordering taxes, like our daily lives, we're ordering groceries. So we're getting used to a certain level of service. And now when we use real estate, be it hospitality or any other segment, there are certain expectations where we want to be digitally served well. So that's another trend that hospitality is dealing with at the moment.
Thanks, Valentina. I'd like to actually ask the same question to Graham, in that to really focus on the hotel side, particularly with the MICE sector. Do you, in your conversation, see any real sort of pain points or challenges at the moment for hoteliers?
Yeah, I think the first thing to acknowledge is that across the industry we're facing staff shortages. That's one of the biggest trends that we're seeing across all hoteliers at the moment, and of course the inevitable budget restrictions that come as part of suffering with 2 years of a pandemic. So that is obviously impacting a lot of what hotels are doing now. It drives two things. One is the need to digitize and the need to go with automation to drive efficiency through the operation. But of course, in order to do that, you need money and you need the time to implement those technologies. So we're at a bit of a catch-22 in most situations. So I think partnering with companies and providers has never been more important. I think that's the most important thing that hotels can do right now in order to get ahead of the curve. And of course, there are a number of different things that the customer, i.e. the event planner, the MICE planner, requires from a hotel now that they perhaps didn't need as much of 2 years ago. So the industry's changed quite significantly.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Graham. And I'll come back to you in a minute just to actually talk about exactly how the needs and demands, particularly from customers and hotels, have changed. But to come back to Valentina, you highlighted on your first point that technology can really help with one of these challenges. So from your perspective, I suppose, what are those technology innovations that are actually powering real estate at the moment that's helping to alleviate some of these problems?
Well, there are numbers. So some of them, they help on the operational side. And as Graham said, automation helps to save on costs, and it helps to tackle their staff shortages. Then there are also a number of technologies that help with data gathering and then data analytics as well. So there are a number of tech that supplies sensors to real estate, and then utilize or aggregates data and gives the aggregate KPIs in a very digestible format, because it's the worst thing to do is to overload real estate with data without actually giving answers. So there is some tech coming from that side. And then another trend, which we are also all facing across segments, is sustainability and ESG agenda. So there are a number of technologies in various verticals, including construction tech, where we see emergence of new materials, for example, to tackle the global warming and climate crisis that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. And I understand your background has been very much within the real estate world. So to tie this in with our hotelier audience, with these trends that you've just highlighted, Valentina, I mean, where are the opportunities for hotels to learn from this?
I would say that there are for the hotel industry, it's just, again, as for anyone else in the market, the key is to find the way to engage with tech, because the most difficult and the biggest challenge for real estate startups it's to break or to find the door to open into real estate and vice versa. So real estate companies, be it hotel operators or owners of the underlying assets, they face the challenge. They see thousands of startups on the market, hundreds of them knocking on their doors. So they need to find a way to engage with the industry. And that can be either done through internal hires. So some of real estate companies, they have their innovations team, or you can engage with real estate accelerator platforms like ourselves, because we see thousands of startups annually. We filter them through, and then we work with the real estate industry through mentorships. So we invite mentors from real estate owners and operators, who we then present selected companies and let them provide feedback instead of, it's not always the question of whether the tech can be immediately deployed in the portfolio, real estate portfolio. Sometimes it's a question, how does technology need to be modified? And that's where real estate industry needs to stay engaged. That's where real estate industry needs to give feedback, needs to talk to the innovators, to the entrepreneurs of today. And that is usually done via engagement with venture funds and accelerators.
Thanks, Valentina. I'd like to come back to Graham, because you mentioned that hotels are now starting to embrace digitization. So on that note, Graham, what are you seeing from your point of view? How are hotels starting to implement these digital tools, and what exactly is it that they now require?
Well, actually, I'll tell you what I'll share with you all. Rather than just hearing from me and my view on this, we very recently surveyed 503 event planner organizations across Europe. So actually I can share some insights directly from the customer that will tell you what they require, rather than me just giving you my opinion. What's interesting is, over the past year or so, that dynamic's changed slightly in terms of what they're actually looking for. And the top three things that they've told us now is, number one, virtual site tours. And if you think about it, planners now, when they're staging events, don't have the luxury of time or budget to fly around or drive around looking at venues, conducting in-person site visits. So virtual site tours was the number one on that list. The second part was the ability to do interactive floor planning. So the ability to source a venue and, in a virtual environment, look at how their event may be laid out, make sure it fits within the venue space, make sure it complies with health and safety. And the third thing is that technical production expertise and infrastructure. So they're reliant on hotels having the ability to stage a hybrid event, so to add a virtual element to that, and ensuring they have the technical infrastructure to support that event. Now, if we go back sort of 7 or 8 months when our last survey was done, number one on the list then was health and safety. Now, health and safety still featured very heavily in the survey, but it's slightly gone down the list slightly in favour of tech, which is very interesting. But from a Cvent perspective, I think there's a couple of other things that we would sort of strongly recommend to customers right now. And the first is business intelligence. I think Valentina mentioned it earlier, one of her points, that the buyer profile has changed, right? So it's not just the hotel industry that's seen a reduction of staff and new people coming into the industry. The same things happened on the MICE side, on the planner side as well. So we've got new customers, which means new sourcing behaviors, but business intelligence will provide that insight into the customer needs, their buying habits, even information about your competitors, where you're winning and losing business, insight into current and former customers, and so on. So it allows you to be very targeted from a sales perspective and to react very quickly to the real-time needs of your buyer, essentially. And a couple of other things. One is room block management. That's absolutely key. I think automating that room block, we speak to hotels every week at the moment where we've got senior people who are doing manual room blocks or rooming lists, right? So the need to automate that is very prevalent right now. And the last point where tech supports is really that fresh new look at how you market your property in terms of capturing business. So that moving into digital marketing techniques, fresh content, displaying layouts, and communicating your technical infrastructure, your health and safety protocols. All of these things are absolutely critical for the buyer right now. So everything that a customer needs is kind of tech driven. It's that automation, but it's all tech driven because that's where the industry's going. And remember that buyer is not just changing, but the new generation of buyer is that younger generation that is completely tech savvy. So we're moving at a faster and faster pace in the hospitality industry into digitization, which I don't think largely the industry is that ready for, but this pandemic has accelerated it, has made it happen, and now's the time to embrace it.
Thanks, Graham. To come back to Valentina before we move on to the presentations, you mentioned that the communication, if you like, between the sort of the real estate professionals and the entrepreneurs needs improving or perhaps smoothing out for developments to move forward. So from your point of view, how can that dialogue be improved?
I think that by just a simple understanding of the fact that, and I don't know why that happened, but for some reason, real estate entrepreneurs, they rarely come from real estate industry. So they rarely are real estate people themselves. They come from fintech, technology, so all sorts of places, and both sides need to understand it. So tech entrepreneurs need to appreciate that perhaps they don't know the industry that well. And the industry, it is a complex industry, especially in the hospitality space. There are multiple stakeholders, and you don't always know what is the right commercial model for the tech that is for the benefit of everyone involved, for the benefit of the whole industry, but then who to sell it to exactly and who is to benefit from it. So there needs to be a certain degree of open-mindedness, and the rest is in real estate space. So real estate as an industry needs to be a little bit more sympathetic to entrepreneurs who come to innovate within it, because quite often it's very easy to say no to technology and be very binary. But I would encourage real estate to engage in a dialogue, to say no, why no, what needs to be improved and what needs to be changed, to educate real estate technology entrepreneurs a little bit more. And that can be done again in various formats. And that's exactly what we do at Reach, connecting the two worlds through the accelerator program. But we are not the only one on the market. There are others. And that's potentially a good way to engage and to take it to the next level instead of being frustrated on both sides.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you both. So we are now going to kick off with one of our first presentations today, and we're going to be handing over to Dom from Bizzon. So if we can pull up his slides ready to kickstart, and I hope that short conversation just now has helped to provide some food for thought and context for today's webinar. But Dom, I am handing over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Eloise. So I thought I'd start off by telling the story of my last hotel stay. So I was arriving late in Paris. I was hungry, I was tired. I got to the hotel, I dropped off my bag in my room. I went down to the restaurant. Probably took about an hour to get served, have my food and finish. And then at the point of wanting to pay, I wanted to charge the bill to my room so I'd have one invoice on checkout. It wasn't the most backward hotel, but they were unable to charge my food to my room without phoning reception, finding out my surname and my first name and my room, then printing off the ticket, asking me to sign the ticket, and then that person carrying the ticket back to reception to then charge to my room. So you'll experience, it's clearly a very clunky guest experience. Now, swap that with the dream of me being on my way to the hotel in my taxi. I look at the menu on my phone, I place an order. When I arrive at the hotel, my food is, at best kind of 5 minutes away from being ready, so it's nice and hot. It frees up more time for me to go to my room and sleep and have a much better stay. And also I've already charged it to my room or paid via my phone. So next slide, please. That kind of image and that story, a couple of questions just to reinforce that. So we all know what this is. It's a point of sale. It takes orders, it takes payments. That's about it. Next slide, please. So what can this do? Well, we've probably all got one, I would fully expect. So if we move on to the next slide, we all know what it can do. you can order your taxi, you can open hotels, you can do hotel rooms, you can place orders shopping, get your sports news, take pictures, a whole load of stuff. So moving on to the next slide, why don't we use this technology and give it to our staff to make use of it? Someone at a recent conference said that the most powerful technology in a hotel is in the customer's pocket. And you can see that difference between the clunky big black till and the smart, sleek mobile phone, which does lots and lots of jobs. It's evident. So why not give that technology to your staff? Next slide, please. So what is generally important to hotels? What is important is that balance between staff efficiency and the customer experience. So as has been mentioned already, we've got the crisis to recruit and to retain. Labour, that's pushing up labour costs, so labour costs are increasing, but also the customer's keen to spend. So how do we get that guest experience right? Well, from the guest perspective, they want speed of service, not like my experience in my last hotel. They want ease of ordering. So could I order from my taxi? Both of those experiences, they all involve how to order and how to pay. But currently, as we've seen from that example of the picture of the till, the bar in hotels is set really low at the moment. So how can we improve that? So next slide, please. Bizzon is a point of sale connected with a platform of digital ordering and payments. So it's an end-to-end restaurant management platform that connects these vital areas. So PMS and POS being integrated allows you to charge to the room really easily. Central reporting in PMS is available. From the customer's perspective, being able to place digital orders wherever you are in the hotel. And they can do that with an open tab, so you don't have to pay every time. You can pay straight away if it's on an outside terrace, for example. You can do click and collect models. So there's different flexible models depending on the hotel requirements. And integrated payments, so you've got immediate chargeback for refunds, no end of day reconciliations, no charging errors on card readers. So there's lots of features there as part of a connected platform. Next slide, please. The hardware that Bizzon uses is all mobile. It's mobile first, so it's mobile phones and tablets. This really helps drive labour productivity. Front of house staff are more present in front of their customers, so they don't have to walk away from the tables to a till. They can take orders anywhere, whether that's in reception or in the bar, and we've got some hotels who have one person with a mobile phone and they're manning reception and the bar, for example. So really driving that labour productivity. And then next slide, please. Bizzon is primarily a hotel-specific POS. And the reason I say that is because it was designed by hoteliers for hoteliers. There's key features in there like product bundles, being able to charge to room, PMS's integration as standard. It's amazing how many POSs aren't integrated with PMS. And for businesses that are across multi-country, there's localization in those regions across Europe with Bizzon. And then the second part of the side is guest experience. So that speed of service. Sorry, next slide. So the speed of service, where me as a guest, I can sit down at a table, I can scan a QR code, I can click a web link, and I can order wherever I am. That QR code tells the front of house staff exactly where I am, so they don't have to put in I'm on table number 1. And this opens up F&B sales into areas that you might not be able to staff, for example, outside terraces or hotel swimming pools or spa areas. So you can start maximizing your F&B revenues. You can upsell, you can guarantee the upsell process. So as part of, if I order a steak, you can suggest the sauce. I can also, as a customer, I can always choose to order in my own language as well. And the customer can also make sure that, the hotel can also make sure that only available products are sold if it's a digital menu, which is very different from a paper menu. Next slide, please. So why Bizzon? Bizzon is a connected restaurant management platform incorporating digital ordering, point of sale, inventory, and payments. And as I said at the start, we're now connected with Muse point of sale. We are Muse's POS. So that seamless guest experience with one company really improves on that experience that I showed at the start, which is that static till that just does two things. The hardware being mobile really benefits labour productivity, flexibility, and it's a much more agile solution. And it drives that better guest experience. So by giving the ability for the guest to order wherever they are in the hotel, that really improves the guest experience. That's it from me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dom. And I'll highlight here, if anybody does have any questions, including our audience members, please submit these using the Q&A and I'll get round to this. But before I hand back over to the judges, and I'll come to Graham first when I do so. But Dom, you've highlighted all the various different tools and services that Bizzon has packaged on its platform. But I'm curious to hear, how is the company looking to innovate its platform?
So obviously you'll appreciate that the integration with Muse, the acquisition was finalised March the 1st. So the product teams are working very hard on how the two products can really work much better together. And I think I've touched on a few of the things, but as part of that guest journey. And going back to my experience in France, what would be great, and we would love to work on it, would be elements like, in advance of my stay, I could be sent a QR code or a web link to place that food order before arrival, taking payments, linking that with my customer data, so that the hotel then knows what my preferences are. Could you start charging to room without having human interaction? That at the moment it's kind of sign on glass to do that validation check in terms of security, so that whoever's charging the F&B spend on is guaranteed to be that person. So they're the things we're looking to develop, but also I touched on localization and fiscalization. We've got a long list of countries that we want to expand into. So currently we're in around 15 countries globally, and we'll be looking to extend that to finalize fiscalization and localization laws in another 10 this year. So there are two main areas of focus.
Fantastic. Well, best of luck with that journey, Dom, and the Bizzon and the wider Muse team. So Graham, I am going to hand over to you first to I suppose, pose any questions that you might have from an events management platform to Dom, or even just offer general feedback on Dom's presentation. But I'll hand over to Graham.
Sure. I think the first question is more for the audience benefit, really, than myself. But Dom, it's interesting. I think that the principle of the tech that you're talking about is, in the wider world, is nothing revolutionary, it's nothing new. It's been around for a long time. So why is it you think that the hotel industry or the hospitality industry is so far behind with this sort of thing, and what's been the barrier to entry for them?
I think, well, moving to the cloud is one thing, which, my 22 years in hospitality, people have always talked about hotels being behind that tech curve. So moving to the cloud is just becoming, morally acceptable and the norm. So I wouldn't call it a rush, but there's a trend to move that way. I also think, people just recognise that technology is better and it's not a risk anymore. So everyone's got mobile phones. They know they work. They know when they don't work, which is very, very rare in days of Wi-Fi and 4G and coming 5G. So actually the reliability of this technology is there for all to see. It's not a leap of faith, like it might have seemed 20 years ago. But equally, there's certain incumbent players that have a stranglehold. The people they know what they know. So when it comes to looking at new systems, you've got this slightly kind of weird experience where consultants will always recommend market leaders because you won't get fired for recommending it because they're a market leader. as opposed to trying different things. But more and more people are realizing that actually there is a better way. Taking orders with a mobile phone is really convenient. Taking payments with an integrated card reader is really slick. But also just thinking about that guest experience. So having things like not having a printed invoice and emailing that invoice to the customer. Some of those things just take different training and different habits, which sometimes take a bit long to change the operation, the front of house operations.
So I've just got one sorry, Luce, I've just got one follow-up question on this. Because this is the challenge, right? Whenever we talk to hoteliers, one thing we talk about automation and technology is that concern always comes back is, are we going to lose that personal touch, that interactive person-to-person engagement? Yeah. How do you overcome that? And what's your talk track around how automation can actually serve that purpose as opposed to detract from it? Yeah,
we've all heard it, I'm sure. The really interesting thing for us is, so with digital ordering, customers who order via their mobile phone in a restaurant spend 38% more than they do ordering via a waiter. So it's not like they don't like it. They like spending, they like using it. And I saw some data this morning actually, which was millennials, they're coming through and they'll become, the next 10 years, they'll become the standard hotel guest, if not already, for some hotels. And they are 5 times more likely to send a message than they are to make a phone call. So there's this move to, it's just convenience, you can do it in your own time. So it's not, so I think hotels who say we're hospitality, it's face-to-face, aren't taking into consideration these changes to modern day life. It's not just what goes on in a hotel, it's what people do in their lives. They like the convenience of everything on a mobile phone. So why doesn't the hotel give their guests that convenience? And lots of hotels are now doing messaging via WhatsApp or similar, because it's really convenient, because that's the platform they message all their friends on. So why not have a digital menu? Everyone buys stuff on Amazon. Most people do. One's hype to buy now, swipe right. It's super convenient. So why don't you make your food and beverage exactly the same? I think that's the transition we're going through.
I won't hog anything. I've got some follow-up comments, but I won't hog anything for now.
Well, this is why we host these kinds of webinars. Maybe you two should connect and then carry this on afterwards. But I will hand over to Valentina to see if she has any questions for Dom.
Yeah, I just have one question, Dominic. Thank you for the presentation. Food and beverages is one of the offerings that hotels provide. What about others? So how do you intend to integrate? We mentioned taxi, but then also there are spa services, and all of that is far from laundry. What else? Some tours. So there are plenty of things that me as a customer, I expect hotels to provide. Offices, printing. So how do we go about that?
Yeah, so I'm obviously my focus is on points of sale. The integration with Muse is more around the PMS, but as a combined solution, we're dealing with the two main elements in a hotel, which is the rooms and the restaurant. So yes, there are kind of external things. I think that's probably more sits within the PMS world. So I'd refer you to my longer serving Muse colleagues on that, as opposed to focusing on the F&B.
And Muse and Bizzon, is there intention to fully integrate, or is the intention to keep that as a separate line and separate brand?
So we're absolutely one company. Whether the Bizzon name stays, Bizzon is Muse POS. Yeah, whether things change in the future, TBC.
Well, seeing as we've touched on property management systems, I think this is a great segue to bring Eleanor into the conversation as a property management solution, which hands over to Duncan for the next presentation. So, Duncan, this is my handover to yourself. Please take it away.
Thanks very much. Okay, I'll start with a fun travel tip then. So again, a reminder, my name's Duncan Chappell. I work for Eleanor. When I lived in South Korea, I would always tell the taxi that I was going to the police station in Yongsan. So I always got a taxi ride and got there fast and efficiently. And then I just navigate past the police station to where I actually lived. So if you're ever struggling with taxis, maybe try that one. On a hot day like today, I wish I was on Mount Victoria in New Zealand. So let me tell you a bit about Eleanor. Eleanor, our mission is to enable and inspire hospitality through ideas and innovation. So it's quite a big goal, really. We're a tech company from London, and we work with hospitality providers around the world, accommodation. So our verticals are hotels, service apartments, holiday lets, corporate housing, even like remote workforce camps. We're in around 20 countries. And we hold some values dear to ourselves. So innovation, empowerment, autonomy and teamwork, like you do you. We believe in that. We were working remotely partially before the pandemic as well. Care, authenticity, and at least trying to bring a bit of a smile to each day. So what do? We're in the bookings and managing reservation space. So, any bookings that are being made or being managed from guests, companies and owners, we take the friction, we take the pain, and we take the admin out of some key areas for providers through software, cloud software. So the first of the 5 areas is billing. We have very advanced, easy to use billing charge statements. That means you can send payment links. You can obviously tokenize and automate payments. So if you're a hotel, you're probably collecting deposits. Are you collecting the money? You're allocating against the invoice on the day of departure, standard. If you're a service apartment, you probably want to invoice once a month, and the due date you need to be separated, and you might want to create the invoice actually a few days prior. What happens if you want to create ad hoc charges? You can do that. What happens if you want to put add-ons onto the bill at the end of the stay? Or indeed, as was mentioned before on the call, bring in the charges from the point of sale and make sure they're on the same open bill, which we call charge statement, so that can be printed, issued or charged. So you can collect money from multiple charges at the same time. We believe in flexibility, which means that you plug in your payment gateway provider, you negotiate the rate with them, although obviously we have some influence, and then you can facilitate payments. We provide all the tooling to do that within the software, including all the reports you would need and notifications to know what's going on if something's overdue. So really, we're providing the manual tools that you require and the automation to manage billing, to take the pain out of that for you, the accommodation, the hospitality provider. We also take the pain out of arrivals and departures. So we'll offer, for example, very nice arrivals lists and departures lists where you can see all the information you have around a guest in one place. You can open up, expand it. You can see all of their notes, the messages that they've been writing. You can see any custom saved information you've got against them, the source where they come from, how long they're staying. You can take actions, you can approve it. You get the picture. Also automating the communication pre-stay as well. So if I'm sitting on a front desk or if I'm sitting in a centralized office, I can use that one place, that one list as a sign off on what's going on. Am I happy with that guest and their arrival or their departure? In terms of direct bookings, we feel like it's a space that, despite is very fragmented, we've always concentrated on direct reservations, and so we offer lots of flexibility around that. We've got tooling for hotels, tooling for service apartments, all using the same underlying engine. And ultimately, if you've got repeat guests, you can take the friction out of that for them even more. Obviously, all mobile friendly, monitoring the sources, offering everything you would expect to really give a slick experience for them. Now, what was mentioned earlier on the call was around information. This is where Eleanor really has a lot of features and a lot of thought. So in terms of information, we offer, for example, a global search. That means that if I'm receiving a message through a chat box, I can just type in the phone number, type in the email address, and get an instant result, bring it up on the screen, and say, hey, no problem, I'm looking at your booking right now. Right? Also, for day-to-day use, being able to use the search where you can find guest information, reservations information, tooling, fast with like Google type responses where you see it on the screen coming up and you can jump into actions. This makes day-to-day work much easier. Obviously, we're API built, so we have modern APIs with Slate for developers. We provide a private API approach, which means that we are very friendly and open, but you still need to actually sign an NDA off to go into it. We allow third parties to develop, and we obviously do developments ourselves. So we take data, the extraction of data from Eleanor very seriously, as well as the storage of it. And by that, I mean that we keep all customer data on reservations, invoices, as long as they want it to be kept. So if you're an Eleanor customer for X number of years, you can mine your data and use it to make decisions, and we actually help them to use the data themselves to make decisions on a day-to-day basis. And the last area is support. Support is obviously an area of friction for accommodation hospitality providers. So what we do, other than your standard phone and email support, is make it in software. If you type in question mark and then what you're looking for, you'll find a direct article. Whatever page in the software you're in, bearing in mind that obviously PMSs have a lot of different pages and tools, being web-based. If you click on that page, you'll get direct support articles listed in the page for you. So you don't need to go and spend a lot of time looking for the help. And all these little things, including, you know, direct links to videos and step-by-step guides, all help to take some of the friction out of the support for the people using the software. I'll just finish on this. How we're unique. Well, we've built easy to use, high functionality software that is very configurable via settings. What I mean by that is we are Android, not Apple, if you want to think about it in that way. You have to toggle the settings and we help you to get it to work exactly how you want it, whether you're a service apartment or a hotel or, you know, a remote workforce camp, or you want some personalization in your system. If you want to set up filters to filter by a city, area, building, if you want to find a one-bedroom apartment or a one-bedroom room which has a shower to make a booking for a certain thing, it's all configurable. You're in control of your data output and also what data you track in the system. So if you want to save certain information, you can track any information you want. You can create it and track it on reservation, guest, company, in a string format, yes, no format, options format. So I think this sets us apart from the marketplace. Essentially, in a nutshell, we don't follow others in how they deliver things. What we do is we look at the problem, we listen carefully to the market and customers, and then we innovate in the way that we can to help them solve that problem. There we go. Thanks very much for listening.
Brilliant. Thank you, Duncan. And I would like to kick off with a question to yourself, please, because you've highlighted the different asset classes that Eleanor serves: hotels, apartments, corporate housing, short stay, all of which have very different operational demands and needs, which suggests to me that your integration strategy must be somewhat quite wide in order to determine what partners you need to partner with. So on that note, what does your integration strategy look like in the future?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much. Good question. So we keep all our APIs modern, accessible, easy for developers to use. So as I said, you know, Slate, we provide them with examples. So we don't, first off, we're not a barrier to anyone wanting to integrate. Any customer wants to integrate something and, you know, they're doing it themselves, or they want to speak to us about integrating it, then we will organize it for them. We continue to offer core partners. So what we find is between the verticals, regardless of accommodation type, you know, if someone wants like a POS, as was mentioned earlier, where, you know, the billing is syncing in and, you know, they can buy stuff from their room or from their phone, then of course we make sure we've always got one or two core partners that offer that, and that the quality of the integration is done. So if you're looking for, you know, something that's going to enable your cleaner to tell them where to go to get between 5 different locations in a morning, and time them whilst they're doing that and allow them to report back with videos, etc. We always make sure we offer a core integration in each key vertical, which causes friction. Beyond those, everything is becomes options. Right? So it comes down to the flexibility. So we don't really, you know, we're not really trying to say you must use this. We advise and we support. But sometimes what will happen is customers, two things. They say, I want to use this, or I am using this. It needs to be integrated, and then it's either basic or advanced. Or they'll say, help us. We need someone that's going to solve this problem for us. And that's where we always make sure to offer something core. So we plan ahead like that, what core integrations and meeting requirements. And then we sort of believe in the democratization of that. So what I mean by that is we engage with customers to find out what's going to be most useful to them in our roadmap and plan. We continue to drive bespoke projects for certain enterprise customers as well.
Thanks, Duncan. I think the a natural fit to hand over to one of the judges here will probably be Valentina, as you kind of have that sort of broad stroke look as to what's happening in the sort of real estate and prop tech world. So Valentina, do you have any questions or feedback for Duncan?
Yes, Duncan, thank you for the presentation. When I heard the story, I hear a lot of automation through their customer journey. And real estate, the usual pushback from the real estate industry, real estate is people's business, especially hospitality. I want to stay close to our client. So it's all wonderful to provide manuals on the help center, but where do we serve to this people's need for people to stay connected to people? How do you keep this human business?
Well, you know, it kind of comes down to flexibility. So if you take something like online check-in, so that's the digitalization of the guest experience pre-arrival. So, well, for a start, it's settings based. So if you want to collect a passport or a driver's license, a digital signature against your terms and conditions, a picture of their face, for a start, you can determine which one of those or all of them you want to collect. You can personalize all the messaging. And then if you dial that through to, I think someone mentioned about hotels earlier and then wanting to keep the face-to-face interaction going, well, they could just use a tablet version of it on arrival just to literally collect the signature. And also they can bypass stuff. So if someone turns up, let's say, for example, they've set it up to say they're only going to collect passports and signatures from international travelers, not domestic, or maybe just passports from international and signatures from everybody, as well as confirmation of card information they're using for the stay. Well, they could determine that in a settings basis. And if somebody wasn't happy on reception about providing their passport, although it's an infinitely better experience than having it held behind the reception for the duration of your stay, I would say, to digitize it and just have it saved in securely. You could just skip past that. That's your choice. You could turn on a setting to say you could skip it on screen. So you're then removing the friction for the staff member. They don't have to deal with conflict. So a lot of these things come down to the quality of decision making within the management at the hospitality provider or the accommodation provider, and their understanding of how configurable the software is.
Perfect. Thank you. That flexibility is key. Thank you for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Graham, do you have any further questions for Duncan whilst we're here?
Yeah, just one. I think look, we're two presentations in, right? And already, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a hotelier, I'm thinking, my God, this is a minefield to navigate, right? So we've spoken about lots of different things already, two presentations in. In terms of barriers to success, Duncan, what are the biggest challenges in getting adoption within the hospitality space of this kind of tech?
You're asking me what are the barriers?
Yeah.
Well, I think you touched on a couple of them earlier. Fear of the unknown, switching from any kind of legacy software to something new, training. So the time that it takes to train or persuade staff. You've essentially got two sets within any hospitality business. You've got the people that are doing and the people that are making decisions or signing off the purchase. So you need the people who are in the central office or working on the front desk or doing the daily tasks to be satisfied and happy with the software. And you also need the management to be happy with it as well. And I think one of the barriers that's not often discussed, so training's one, time is mentioned earlier, as well as staffing. And I'd say the third one is data, right? So if you're going from one system to another, your data has a value, and you have to be sure that you can take that valuable data and put it into the next software or system. And really, it should be all your historical data as well as any future data. And I think too often in hospitality, that's where businesses don't think carefully about it, is you should be choosing a provider where you can transpose all of your data and information. Otherwise, you're saying goodbye to money, or certainly data that you could monetize. For sure, these things go across people's minds. And I think the other thing is just that it's such a broad marketplace. There's so many choices, on different, on the scale, that, as you said, there's a lot of information. So usually the best thing for them to do is to go through their own mini process internally about what their key requirements are, narrow it down to a set of 3 to 6 providers and engage with those. But I have to say, even on that, sometimes there are so many small requirements that really what you want to do is you want to say, what type of accommodation are we? What type of guests do we house predominantly? Where do we predominantly get our business from? And then steer your software in that direction. You know, if you fancy doing corporate housing, but 80% of your business comes from booking.com, you need to first and foremost choose software that's going to help you to manage that business.
Wise advice. Thank you, Duncan, and thanks for the follow-up questions, Graham and Valentina. Our last but very not least final presentation of today is Shaun from HiJiffy. So I'm going to, well, my team are clearly very on it. So Shaun, over to you, please.
Perfect. Good afternoon again, everyone. So last but not least, HiJiffy, all-in-one communication platform for hotels. Founded in 2016, with already now we've been able to expand 1,600 hotels in over 32 countries. And because of being founded in 2016, we've got 6 years of experience of collecting data around communication. And we're proud to announce that we've been able to launch our own internal AI engine, which is called Applesia. The main goal of that is to build on intent and semantic analysis within the hospitality industry to really understand guests' needs and be proactive in delivering the right response at the right time across the right channel. Next slide, please. So some of the pain points that we see within digital comms in the industry, as well as phone communication being really high in volume. So the industry is really faced with high volume of call and emails, and it really jeopardizes then the face-to-face guest experience, which has already been spoken about already. What we see from this is that there's a huge domino effect, missing resources to cater for other communication channels. Hotels will operate with Facebook, Instagram, Google My Business. It then means that you have communication across multiple channels and communication can be lost. How can we centralize this and ensure that all communication is answered to and guests know exactly what's happening at the property, as well as the in-house team know exactly which channel the guest has reached out on? Over 60% of chatbot interactions usually happen outside of business hours. What this means is that the team then come back into the office and find an influx in emails, in chat requests, and so on. With our solution, our goal is to really to automate as much as possible. How can we deliver the tailored responses for guests outside of business hours and ensure that 24/7 digital comms are being met? OTA dependency, this being a big one in the industry at the moment. How can we drive more direct bookings? But also around digital communication, if a guest has a question online, they'll be searching across Google. Are you pet friendly? Do you have parking? You don't want the guest to ultimately click on a booking.com link and book on that page instead. The goal is that you retain the guest on your website. So we really value the amount of direct traffic hotels are putting in. More importantly, we're pushing SEO because you have your frequently asked questions available on your website. You're able to then make sure you have higher SEO on a Google search as well. And all of this combines ultimately to response times. How can we reduce response times and really increase productivity in-house? Next slide, please. And this leads me on to the first part of the guest journey. So HiJiffy really split into 2 phases of the guest journey. First is the consideration phase, guests searching around before they're actually having to book. And the next part is really the in-stay. So sticking with the booking assistant, this is a chatbot solution deployed on the website of our hotel. The goal of the solution is to really act like a sales funnel. Ultimately, you have a potential lead on the website. How can you qualify that lead and then convert that lead ultimately? What we deem as converting a lead is really redirecting to a live agent where necessary, or redirecting straight through to the booking engine where the guest can book directly on your booking engine commission-free. And essentially what we see with our solution, it can be deployed easily across Facebook, Instagram, Google My Business. It means then you can centralize all these channels and more importantly, have it available across mobile as well. Next slide, please. And this moves smoothly onto the Virtual Concierge, which, because we've got 160 topics deployed in the first part consideration phase, being from pet friendly to pool temperatures and so on, we can then deploy a really advanced solution for the in-house experience across WhatsApp, SMS, or email. WhatsApp being a huge channel in the European market where we see over 90% of guests using WhatsApp, SMS being a huge channel in the US, for example. But let's say the guest has input in the wrong dialing code to their reservation, not a problem. As a fallback, the guest will still receive an email. We deem these messages as campaigns. So hotels can simply set each campaign how they would like to do it, integrated directly to a PMS where you can have a welcome message really informing the guest what's available in-house. And across a digital platform such as this is really tell the guest, okay, look, you can use this channel to message the hotel at any point during the guest's journey. More importantly, here it means that all of those guests that are deemed as a faceless customer, what we see more and more is that you have a guest that checks in, checks out, and that's all you'll see them throughout the guest journey. How can we really target these guests and create call to actions to push upselling opportunities like a room upgrade, in-stay services, make sure that if they're having any issues with an AC, it's really hot at the moment. How can we make sure that all ACs are working and they don't need to be at the reception or calling the reception? They can simply request it across a message like this. Or if, for example, you're trying to promote your bar facilities or spa accommodations and really trying to push as many upselling opportunities as possible throughout the guest journey, trigger a call to action message and make sure the guest is informed what's available in-house for their duration of their stay. Lastly, checkout and feedback. Key element here is that we see a number of guests really, as I mentioned already, faceless, but more importantly, they're looking to vent. So if you have any issues throughout the guest journey, make sure they're rectified across this channel and then give out a review-based link so they can add in a review to TripAdvisor or to Google reviews accordingly. Next slide, please. And this sums it up into really using the right interaction at the right timing on the right channel and really from all parts of the guest journey, from consideration phase, so a lead visiting the website, going through to making a direct booking, pushing your upselling room upgrade campaign, welcome message to really make the guests feel comfortable and they can use a digital solution while they're in-house, and then digitalizing that whole experience in-house from check-in to upselling campaigns to room requests, satisfaction surveys, and then the digital checkout. Lastly, a thank you message, sending the guests to a review-based platform and ensuring that they book direct in future. And that's everything from HiJiffy. Questions?
Brilliant. Thank you, Shaun. And again, if the audience has any questions, please do submit these and we'll get round to them. But it was touched on earlier today how that we're living in a world of instantaneous needs, or that we want that immediate gratification. And in your presentation, Shaun, you touched on the need to reduce response times within hotels. So where does HiJiffy then add value to hoteliers?
So a really good question there as well. What's been touched on in today's webinar is obviously the change in demographic. We see a lot more younger generation being influenced into the industry. It's a post-pandemic world where everyone wants to get out and travel again. They're more inclined to start messaging. And this is what we see is that WhatsApp, for example, is a channel that's used by over 90% of guests. Therefore, if you're messaging your family across WhatsApp, why can't you do it at the hotel? Same with a customer service sort of request before you're actually booking. You shouldn't need to go and search on multiple platforms whether the hotel is pet friendly. That's a common question that should be able to be answered and automated online. It really improves the guest journey. So delivering instant responses on the right channel at the right time is a key part of the guest journey these days. And guests shouldn't be forced to sort of find the hotel website FAQ page or forced to go onto booking.com to find any information. They should be able to find it whenever they're in a chatbot experience.
Thank you, Shaun. I'll hand over to Graham to lead any feedback or questions for this next part, as I would expect that at Cvent you probably get loads of requests and emails and whatnot from planners with regards to what they need. So there's some similarity here. So Graham, I'll leave you to lead the next part.
Yeah, I think my first question was going to be where did the name HiJiffy come from? But that's a conversation for another day, I think. But no, I think I want to go back to a point that we've kind of touched on multiple times. But we're talking about chatbots here, which I find really interesting. How do you overcome and look at a hotel's perspective? A hotel prides itself on that personal service, particularly in the luxury sector. Right? It's all about the personal service, building those relationships. And I, for one, I've used chatbots in the past where you've got a bespoke question. You can't get a damn answer to that question no matter how many times you ask it, right? So how do you bridge the gap between clearly where things are going and I guess a generation like my dad, for example, went into a pub last summer, had to order on a QR code, didn't know how to do it, couldn't work, couldn't get served and walked up and left, right? So how do we bridge the gap between what's coming and where we are currently?
So a really good question, and I'll start by answering your first part to the question. So HiJiffy really was founded with that name because it's delivering instant responses. So hi in a jiffy, ultimately chatbot conversations in a jiffy. But then moving on to the next part, our key part and focus within HiJiffy is delivering an automated solution that's highly adapted to the hotel in terms of tone of voice and the look and feel. More importantly here, where we see groups jumping onto HiJiffy's solution, they actually have a wide variety and diverse group of properties, which could be in multiple locations, offering a variety of services and appealing to a different demographic. The minute you adapt your tone of voice and customer service, your goal is to really build trust. And like I said earlier, once you form this trust element, you can then form really tailored answers to deliver FAQs and build a qualified lead and convert that lead ultimately. So really by tailoring these responses, we mean the look and feel, personalizing the tone of voice. Are you going for a more casual approach as a formal spa luxury property, for example, and making sure that the guest feels like they're speaking to an additional arm of the team, and really keep the chatbot solution as your own.
Thanks, Shaun, and thanks, Graham. Valentina, do you have any follow-up questions whilst we're here?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Shaun. I am going to wear my investor hat on and just help me understand how defensible the solution is, because I can imagine that other players could potentially develop something similar. And I heard at the start, you said that you exist since 2016, so which means that you're probably enjoying some first mover advantage, and you said that you developed some proprietary tech. If we can zoom into that, so what proprietary tech exactly and how defensible the solution is?
So a really good question, and this is why I mentioned the announcement at the beginning of the call is really Aplesia has been our shift towards being the differentiator in the industry. What we see traditionally within chatbot solution is that they've been heavily focused on keywords and phrases, which, linking back to Graham's question, is essentially creates that vicious loop and irritation for a guest where they can't get the right answer. Once we can build on understanding intent and semantic analysis into conversation, it's really taking conversation to the next level. And with that, we hope to advance it even more into the future of understanding voice communication as well. So really, with this AI engine that we're building, we're able to formulate a huge amount of data, understanding different topics within the industry, firstly, and then from there, understanding the intent towards delivering the right answers to those topics and building from that from a semantic analysis perspective.
Thank you, Shaun. That's very helpful.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shaun. Thank you, Valentina. We've had one question come through from the audience, and so I think it would be best to leave with this final question. Mitt, the slides will be shared after the webinar. This webinar has been recording, and the full recording will also be shared after the webinar. But what are the host's thoughts on the biggest disruptor in tech in the next 3 to 5 years? So Valentina, I'll stay with you on this one as we've just finished your session here. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think disruptor techs will follow the needs and expectations of the customers. So I do expect in the next 3 to 5 years, new business models to emerge. Generally speaking, real estate industry will be challenged in the way how real estate is operated, not only in hospitality sector, but in offices, residential, retail. There is some expectation that square meters will be used, will have multiple usage. So it's not that distinct going forward. And then one of their technologies that we all need to watch is the emergence, and there is a lot of talk about it right now, emergence of metaverse. So to what degree do we really be required, will we really be required to travel to for business, for meetings, for work, and what can be done from our kitchens by just utilizing technology. So that's a space to watch for everyone, and automation as well. So there will be a lot of services that will ultimately be automated through tech, which is not a bad thing. So automation brings efficiency, but I do hope that personal touch will stay part and parcel of real estate and how we live.
Thank you. So we have slightly overrun on this webinar, so I am going to rather politely try and close off this session, but I would highlight that if anyone has any further questions, please connect with all the speakers on this webinar. So we've just launched a poll, and if our audience members can please vote on who they think is going to be the next best hotel tech. We have Bizzon, Eleanor, PMS, or HiJiffy. And whilst you guys are casting your vote, I am going to run you through some closing slides for today. And first off is a list of upcoming webinars that I will be kickstarting from September through to November, one of which is called The Metaverse, the Emperor's New Clothes or a Bright Future for Hospitality. So if you're intrigued to learn more, I would definitely recommend you guys sign up to the 31st of October session. But pleased to hear that we have Cvent on board as a series sponsor for that session, and well, for the whole series, in fact, not just the session on the metaverse. And if you would like to hear further information about our webinars, particularly sponsorship opportunities, then please do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are now up on your screen, and again, her LinkedIn profile has been posted into the chat if you would like to find out more. So all that's left for me today is really to say thank you. We have the results in. If you would like to know who our audience voted for, it was HiJiffy. Well done, Shaun. Congratulations. However, we all have a very important role to play in the tech ecosystem. But once again, thank you for our audience for tuning in and submitting their questions. Thank you to our technology providers for presenting and pitching. And thank you to our judges for sharing some context and our follow-up sessions. We will leave this webinar open for an extra 2 minutes for you all to follow up on any of the links that we have posted in the chat today. But otherwise, go and enjoy the sunshine because it's blooming sweltering in here. But once again, thank you, take care, and I'll see you all again very soon.